Welcome to part 2 of the road to 20,000 subscribers. And Stellantis have handed me the keys to their pride and joy, the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, affectionately known as Hulk, to attend Angela's picnic, hosted by Stellantis of course. So in this video, you can expect to see the very latest cars in the automotive world, alongside some throwbacks. And while we're doing that, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the Wrangler's practicality, its features, its driving dynamics, and what it'll cost to run on a monthly basis. Jeep has to be one of the coolest and nonchalant brands I've ever worked with. They have to be because their truck literally says f***ing bah. So they definitely passed the vibe check. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Car Talks. Power, precision, performance. To get the admin out of the way, Stellantis is a global automotive group that owns several car brands around the world. And in the South African context, they bring across 7 of those brands. Namely Opel, Peugeot, Leapmotor, Jeep, Alfa Romeo, Citroën, Fiat, and Abarth. Some of which you'll get to see in this very picnic. And the reason I say 7 and not 8 is because Abarth is a 100% held subsidiary of Fiat, so it's basically a mini group within the group. But of course the picnic itself is open to virtually any car brand to partake in, including the Germans. There's just something about Porsche that pulls you in. I don't know what it is. And this one is the latest 992.2 Carrera GTS with a stunning pearlescent white finish. Moving right along, I had the Wrangler with me for a little over 48 hours, so with the limited time I had with the vehicle, I decided to sneak in an impromptu review alongside other commitments. And under the bonnet of this facelift sits a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder petrol engine, producing 200 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters of torque, which it sends to all 4 wheels via an 8-speed automatic gearbox. Curb weight comes in at a smidge over 2 tons, and it'll do the 0 to 100 km per hour sprint in a claimed 7.5 seconds. This makes even more torque than the 3.6-liter V6 that it replaces, so performance-wise, you're not losing out on anything. But I do wonder if that trade-off has actually paid off, because you do lose that soundtrack of the V6, which was always a big part of the character of the Wrangler. And I mean, I've been averaging anywhere between 15 and 19 liters per 100 kilometers in the 2-liter. So in light of that, how bad could the V6 really have been? Back to Angela's picnic, and upon arrival, immediately the atmosphere was super electric, and so I managed to pull in and find the Jeep section to squeeze into. And just check out how my Wrangler towers over a normal Wrangler, and that's thanks to the bespoke suspension, which we'll talk about later on. Greendale House Palliative and Hospice Care was also on site on the day. So do visit their website and donate whatever you can for the amazing work that they're doing in taking care of the elderly and those in need of palliative care. But before we do anything today, let's grab some coffee because, well, any day is a good day to have coffee, right? Admittedly, the queue was quite long and the entire process took about an hour, but this is some of the best coffee you'll ever have, so totally worth it. And while waiting for my order, I came across the most random sign in the farm. But how cool is that? And now that I have my medium roast morning cappuccino in hand, let the day begin. So I had the opportunity to interact with the top brass at Stellantis, discussing all things Angela's picnic and the rich history of the automotive community in South Africa. It's also quite cool that Stellantis still give me test cars despite everything I've said about EVs in the past. Which proves the point that it's not about me or them personally, it's about creating better cars for the future. Anyway, first up is the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon, which still retains the good old 3.6-liter V6, thankfully. Now, I should be getting this on test at some point in the near future, and I'll be sure to take it off-road and do other cool stuff with it for you guys. So do let me know what other type of content you'd like to see me do with it. Moving right along, the Leapmotor C10 Reeve also made an appearance, as did the Alfa Romeo Junior Elettrica Veloce, which we've both had on test already, so I'll leave the links to those reviews in the description box below. And speaking of the Junior, the 1976 Alfa Romeo Alfetta GTV was alongside of it, a really cool two-door fastback coupe. And it's really interesting how cars have ballooned in size over time, because the Junior is essentially a compact crossover, but it looks like it just had a GTV for breakfast while I was having my coffee. And of course, it wouldn't be a car show without the twins, the Alfa Romeo Giulia and Stelvio Quadrifoglio. Hopefully this means we're getting one step closer to having these bad boys on test. So Stellantis, if you're watching this, let's make a special episode with these bad boys before the end of the year. Moving on to practicality and features, the four-door Wrangler gets a massive 898 liters worth of boot space with the rear seats upright, as claimed by the manufacturer. You got a 12-volt socket, the rear seats fold in a 60-40 split configuration, and under the boot floor is your jack and emergency triangle. But most importantly, this right here is actually a canopy, which means you can unscrew and detach it to expose that lovely roll cage. In fact, the doors are also detachable, and what you're left with is essentially a shell on wheels, which has its pros and cons as you're about to find out in this video. Finally then, behind your manually operated tailgate is your spare wheel. Coming around to the rear cabin, you get a couple of grab handles, as is the case in the front. You get rubber mats which come in handy when off-roading, and I wish they had done the same in the boot as well. You get a black leather bench with a center armrest and 2 cup holders. You get ISOFIX anchor points for your child seat, 6 airbags, and the pre-facelift Wrangler only got a 1-star Euro NCAP rating and a 3-star Australasian NCAP rating, presumably because half of the vehicle is detachable. And to my knowledge, the revised version of the Wrangler remains unrated under those 2 bodies. But I'd be interested to know what other bodies have crash tested the new Wrangler and what rating it got. So if you do know, comment down below. You get 2 air vents, 4 USB ports, 2 of which are Type-C, and a 150-watt AC plug. Rear legroom is okay, but it's not plentiful, so adults will be fine for short trips. And for reference, I'm 1.78 meters tall or 5'10" for those who are in the Americas. And with that being said, let's take a look at the front cabin. And built for function is what best describes it, because you get a good old mechanical handbrake, a grab handle on the dashboard, and physical dials and buttons for your aircon, radio volume, and just about every function really, which is very refreshing in this day and age of having TV screens in your car. You get electrically adjustable black leather seats with Rubicon embroidery, and new for the facelift is a 12.3-inch Uconnect 5 touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You have 4 custom auxiliary buttons that allow you to hook up extra lights, like these Osram ones for example, or a winch, or whatever else your heart desires. This top-spec Rubicon comes equipped with a soft top that you can electronically retract, which I think is the party trick to this vehicle, and I literally had it open 99% of the time. Storage-wise, you get a deep but narrow cubbyhole and a storage bin under your center armrest with another USB Type-A port. Sorry for the mess, car came like that. And in addition to that, you have another 2 USB ports on the dash, so I've counted 7 so far. Can you think of any other car that we've had on the channel that has just as many or more USB ports? Comment down below. You get a lovely leather-wrapped multifunction steering wheel, analog dials, 2 cup holders, and a 9-speaker Alpine sound system, which I'll do a proper sound test of when I get this for a longer period. Before we get to driving dynamics, we are still on the road to 20,000 subscribers. So if you're enjoying these videos, then please go ahead and smash that subscribe button to become a part of the family. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so that you don't miss a single one of our epic reviews. The specification of this unit is honestly mind-boggling. I mean, the normal Wrangler is already known to be a bit of a hooligan off-road, but this one takes things up a few notches because it's got a bespoke rock crawler suspension setup fitted by the team at Thunder LEDs and 4x4 Accessories, the official importers and distributors of rock crawler suspensions in South Africa. So I reached out to them to find out just how much this rock crawler 2.5-inch Adventure Series would typically cost, paired with those RRD 2.25 IFP shocks. And the quote I got came to 97,900 rands out the door, including fitment. So let's call that 100,000 rands. But then, if you want the full kit with adjustable control arms and track bars, then that would be about 150,000 rands. They do have more affordable options that they usually pair the rock crawler suspension with. So visit www.thunderleds.co.za for a quote that will suit your budget, and let them know you saw the rock crawler suspension on Car Talks. I also looked up those Maxxis Razor all-terrain tires online, and yep, those will set you back about 7,000 rands per tire, including labor. The Wrangler is a true ladder frame chassis SUV and comes equipped with a low-range transfer case and 2 locking differentials. We'll be getting the Gladiator on test on the channel at some point later this year, which has a similar suspension setup, and given enough time to actually plan for it, I'll be taking it off-road to test just how much more capable this setup is over the standard suspension. But as far as looks go, it looks menacing. It looks like a power lifter that has gained a few kilos off-season, and makes the normal Wrangler look a bit anorexic. But I think that on-road driving dynamics is where this setup might come back to bite you a little bit. A, in the fuel consumption, because I saw numbers as high as 19 liters to the 100, and B, road noise. Now, the normal Rubicon already has a bit of road noise at speeds above 100 kilometers per hour, thanks to the soft top, and this setup adds another 20% to that road noise. Probably hard to tell on camera, but I'll give you a clip anyway. But for what it's worth, it was really nice bullying taxi drivers on the road for a change. Taxi drivers really think twice before cutting off a Wrangler in traffic, so that was delightful to see. Back to the picnic, I also met Cameron, who actually builds old Fiat 500s from the ground up, which is pretty cool and insane. And his page is on your screen right now. Anyway, now let's take a look at some of the cool and quirky cars that I saw on the day. Sorry guys, I'm just channeling my inner Doug DeMuro. Brake towing capacity comes in at 2.5 tons. Other highlight features include a choice of 10 colors to choose from, but this unit has a custom mojito green paint finish. You get LED headlights, front and rear cameras, and a 5-year 100,000 kilometer service plan and warranty. Moving on to pricing and cost of ownership, the 4-door Rubicon is priced from 1.37 million rands, but this custom one will set you back an extra 100,000 rands, excluding the paintwork. And on finance, you can expect to pay 27,500 rands a month over 6 years at the current prime interest rate of 10.5% per annum. And on that note, there's been a 25 basis point increase in the country's repo rate by the Reserve Bank. Please, man, please. Insurance is risk profile dependent, and the cheapest quote I got was 3,200 rands. A full tank of petrol will cost you 2,300 rands at the current inland price of 95 octane for its 81-liter fuel tank, which would then bring your total cost of ownership to 33,000 rands. So given its cost, where does the Wrangler fit in the market then? From an off-roading perspective, I think it's equally as competent as the Land Rover Defender that we had on test last week, and probably even more with this suspension. But the Defender is far more sophisticated and has a luxury inclination to it, which would explain the massive price jump that you're actually paying for a Defender. And if you look at other rock-crawling mid-sized SUVs in the market, you've got the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, but again, in a similar fashion to the Defender, it's got a luxury appeal to it that the Wrangler simply doesn't have, which leaves the GWM Tank 300. Except that's only half of the price of a Wrangler. So my take on the Wrangler is that it's become a niche product for those who truly want one. Its value is intangible. It lies in the unseen. You're essentially buying into a certain culture, a certain lifestyle experience that comes with owning a Wrangler. Like the Jeep ducking experience, for example, which is a social tradition where Jeep owners place small rubber ducks on other Jeeps that they admire, usually on the dashboard or on the bonnet. It's a playful, anonymous way of saying, "Hey, cool Jeep." So if you're going to tally up precisely what you're getting from the vehicle itself versus what you're paying for it, then that exchange of value won't reconcile 100%, unless you include the intangible, unseen value. As always, let me know what SUV you're getting for around 1.4 million rands. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.